Today we're going to make a little bit of a uh, random loop program. Now, so we're going to be talking about random number generation and some basic loops. So first off, I'm going to take a label, just drop it on here, and I'll just call it label output. For the text, it really can be anything. I'll just put a couple of periods there. Label output. There we go. And I'll need a button of some sort to click and initiate things. So I'll just drop that here. And we'll just call this button go. And loop. There we go. So we get a nice button. A little bigger, move it over here. So what I want to happen is when I click the button, randomly what's going to occur is I'm going to run a loop, which is code that executes multiple times. It's going to pick a number, 1, 5, 8, and it's going to print a little message on the screen right here. So if it randomly picks 5, it'll print that message 5 times. If it randomly picks 3, it'll print a message 3 times. Fairly simple, straightforward. And of course for this we're going to need a bit of code. So let's go on in here. So when I click on this Go button, it's going to do a couple of things. I'm going to need a couple of variables first. Let's spell things right. Integer and count. Integer. Alright. Poof. So I'm just going to, I think it should default these values to 0, but you know, it never hurts. Whoops. Just go ahead and make sure. Count to 0. And total equals 0. And also, when this button runs, it should reset those values to 0, so just in case. And my label output .text will be just, let's see, just blank, basically. And that just clears the label. So if I leave this off, every time I click the button, it'll just keep adding on to the previous items. If I leave it like this, it should clear it out every single time that, you know, it happens. So R1 equals random.next, and let's go with random.next. We'll just go with 5 for now. So this should give me 0 to 4 as far as the range goes. It's always 0 to 1 less than whatever's there. Now, if R1 equals 0, if that's the case, then label output.text equals and .text equals nothing happens this time. If I leave, 0, it's supposed to loop and print something on the screen, but if it's 0, nothing happens, so I'm just going to have this little message here just when that 0 happens. So now, go here. If it's not 0, else. And if. Alright, so if it's not 0, here we go, we'll go ahead and loop and print some things on the screen. Now, this first little setup here gives me a random number, and I check to see if it's 0 or more. Now, we're going to go in here and get this set up. While. We could use a for loop, but I'm going to use a while loop because I've used a for loop, I think, in previous time, so having a while loop here is going to be a little different. So, while count, which is 0, is less than R1, which is that random number generator, which could be 0 to 4. well, to be here, it has to be at least 1 to 4. 1 to 3. Nope, 4. So 1 to 4, or whatever number I set it to. If I come up here and set this to 10, it would be 0 to 9. So we'll just leave it like this for now. So let's see here. What we want to happen is this loop's going to loop this many times. Now, if I don't have this here, then the count will always stay 0. 0 is always less than 1 or greater. This loop would end up going on for infinity. But since I have this here, it should count it up every time this loop runs, which means it should hit an ending. Now, let's see here. I actually left out something here, I think, but we'll see. I'm going to do another little random generator here. Dim R2 as new integer. R2 equals random dot next. Then I'll just talk briefly about ranges. So if I say 10 plus 1, that's the same as basically, you know, the original range was 0 to 9. But if I add 1 to it, plus 1 to each side, that gives you 1 to 10. So basically this bumps the range up. So if I wanted, let's say, 10 to 20, well, I know plus 1 gets me a minimum of 1. If I say plus 10, that gives me a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 19. So I'd have to have one more here. That would give me 0 to 10, 0, 10. You add 10 to both sides, you got 10 to 20. That's how you would effectively get a range of things. Like that. So this will basically just tell me how many times I'm going to loop, and this will print a little message or a little random number generator each time it does. So output dot text plus equals, and plus equals adds it to the previous one. So in this case, it's just going to, you know, add on to whatever's there previously. If I just say equals, it'll erase the previous message and you won't actually get to see it. So, and as we don't want to erase the previous message, we want to see every one that prints, every one that goes, then we'll go ahead and have the plus equals here. So, plus equals. Let's get our message. The number chosen is and R2 and. Now, there's a couple of ways we could do a new line here, if I remember correctly. Environment dot new line basically just is like pressing enter. So if I don't have this, basically it's just going to put all this on one line. This gives me another line, basically. Another line. Now, we got that. Count plus 1, total plus equals R2. Oh, and I left out one of my items I was going to do here. We're going to need a text box on my screen too. So let me go back and add that. And all my text box is going to do is simply put the total of all those numbers over here. I suppose we should go ahead and set that properly. So we'll just call it text total. Let's see here, name, txt total. Ba-da, like that. Now, I can come up here and set a couple of little attributes and stuff for it, but I'm going to say enable to false. And that means I can't type anything in it. So when this program runs, it will essentially just not allow me to type anything into it, but I can still put stuff in it, so it's fine. So let's see here. We go zoom in, get back to where we were. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. Every random number that gets picked here, we're going to add it to that total, and we're going to get the total once it runs. Now, if all this finishes, my end if, my end while, and all that, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Text total dot text equals total. This is just setting the total value to whatever it happens to be after we do our little addition. So that's what that text total is for. And why I unfortunately forgot it a second ago. So we've got some variables. Got a count to keep count with our loop. If we pick 0, it's going to print this. If it's any other number for this random number generator, it's going to print the line on there that many times. So let's see. And if I'm not much mistaken, my virus scanner will probably be somewhat angry with me attempting to run this real quick. ABG cyber capture. So just sit with me for a minute while it finds out that my own personal code is not going to wreck the system. And there it goes. Alright, so if I hit loop, the number 7 was chosen. And notice you only see this one once. There's 7. Hit it again. Hey, it went 3 times. 8, 4, 6. Add those numbers together, you get 18. And nothing happened because 0 was chosen. 4 was chosen. So remember, our range for how many times this loops is 0 to 4. So this is the most we're going to see. And then I've got my random number generator. Adding up my numbers. That's 10, 15, 17, 5. Yep. Seems to be working. Now if I go in here and change anything, like this to 10, for example, now it can go up to 10 times in that loop. And you see my number that I'm adding is getting bigger. If I change the number generation here to be bigger, then the individual numbers inside the loop are going to get bigger. And that's essentially it for the most part. We've got a little bit of some label text stuff that you should have already done by now. But the big thing is dealing with loops and a little bit of extra items with the random number generation. So now you can play with this if you could do the same thing with a for loop, which is actually a lot harder to screw up than a while loop. If I take this line out, this loop will basically break the entire program. Like this. Boop. Notice nothing's happening. Even though there's a loop and it says go and it should be working, it's not. And that's because it's stuck here in this infinite loop, going around and around and around and around. And it's doing it so fast it doesn't know what to do. So again, that's an infinite loop. Fix it? We have to make sure the loop goes up like it's supposed to. Like that. And that is the program. If you have any questions or issues, as usual, let me know.